Hi everybody, it's Tripl-L coming in to talk about Shokugeki no Soma chapter 308. Hey everyone! So yeah, this week is just a nice Soma chapter. I think it's pretty solid. It's a cooking judging chapter. It's been a while since we've had a legit one of these. Well, no, not really. I think we had a good one for Takumi and them. But yeah, it's a legit cooking chapter, judging period. I don't recall what I wanted last week. I feel like I wanted this to be over. I feel like I wanted Soma to be judged in this chapter as well. Maybe. I think that's what I was feeling. But at this point, I'm just like, okay, whatever. We just got a whole thing of Asahi getting his judgment. Everyone just going bananas for it. I'm very happy that they did the full cooking process, that they talked about the food and why it was so good. I feel like this is what Tsukasa deserved. I feel like this is what Megumi deserved in all her bouts. People are saying that, maybe the person that went on maternity leave is back, and it's like, okay, if we're gonna start playing that game, sure. If we're gonna say that there was this person that was gone, sure. No problem. It sounds like I'm complaining. I should dial it back. Point is, I really liked that it was going back to the original style, because it makes me feel more secure about Soma's future. So for this chapter, what I really want to talk to you guys about, because after a certain point, there's just not much you can say about the cooking process. Like I am ignorant of the cooking ways, of the culinary ways. I don't even know the words to describe it. So I'm not the best equipped to actually talk about the food. But there are some ideas that popped up in the chapter, or really just one idea that popped up in the chapter that I found really interesting that I'm just going to talk through with you guys. And then there is a theory that I spotted on the manga stream comments, and I think it's super interesting. So I'm also going to talk about that with you guys. So yeah, that's pretty much what's on the agenda for today's video. So, one of the big things that I guess I really want to cover. First let's just do the basic talks, because there technically was a bit that happened in the chapter. Like for instance, you had the core and courage coming back into this into the judging process, and they quickly established what kind of characters they are with the absence of Asami. They're just characters that like whatever handsome person is in front of them. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Like, these characters came in and they just felt, when they first showed up, they just felt like they were like arm candy for Asami. And right now, they're gushing over Asahi. It's like, oh, okay. I mean, sure. Let's just remember, this guy's a criminal. Let's just remember, this guy kidnapped Irina. Let's just remember, this guy put Irina in a room that most likely had horrible ventilation and was surrounded by at least 8 dumpster fires. Okay, this is not the classic kind of guy that people would want to be with. I'm just saying, I will never forget the day that this man kidnapped a child. Irina was underage. Okay, there's a lot of things wrong with this kid. Anyway, that aside, they come back in. Other than that, beyond that point, it's the standard explanation. It's people talking about why this is amazing. So yeah, not really much to go on there. Now, at some point, while they're doing the judging process, I think, is it the core? I forget her name, but the dark skinned one, she has a little point that I thought was really, really interesting. And that was specifically that she brought up the example of 5 chefs who come together to make a single dish. But what I found really interesting was what she used or how she illustrated this point. And I'll just read out her line. She says, like, all 5 are from entirely different countries. They speak different languages and grew up in different cultures. These 5 chefs are told to combine their vastly different talents to create a single dish that's a hybrid of them all. That sounds like it should be impossible, does it not? I don't think it does. Let's look at the rhetoric there. What is she trying to say with that general idea? Well, look at what she brings up. They're from different countries, they speak different languages, and they grew up in different cultures. What she's saying is that these people's inherent biases, the bias to their own culture, and the language barrier, so like pretty much their ability to communicate with each other, is what's ultimately going to ruin the dish or stop the dish from being, or make the dish impossible. That's really funny, isn't it? Like, think about that. The problem itself isn't coming from the ability of the people. It's coming from whether or not the people can work well together. That's a really interesting thing to put out there, and it's also interesting to see how far the character goes to say that it's impossible based on that being the premise. It's not like there's a fundamental clash in the food itself. It's just how the people making the food communicate. So now let's think about that a bit more. You can see why Asahi can do what these 5 separate chefs can, because after all, Asahi can communicate with himself just fine. Heck, Asahi can communicate with the skills of the people that he stole it from just fine. Also, I found it funny, like in the official translation, someone called it out when they were rating something about Tsukasa's swordmanship. Like, I think it was either the Core Courage, they went and said that Asahi just flat out stole it from Tsukasa. I just found it really funny that they're using that terminology. It just really like reiterates Asahi. It's interesting to see how people in the story talk about Asahi. Anyway, going back to the point, it makes sense that Asahi can do it because he can communicate with all the skills he's collected. But then you think about, well, man, I wish I knew her name. I'll just say one half of the pair. The one half of the pair sets up a situation that's based around cultural and language communication divisions. But then you have Totsuki. If you think about Totsuki, it's a bit of a microcosm of the whole world, right? Because in Totsuki, you can have someone like Kuga, and then you can have someone like, Tsukasa. Those two do vastly different styles. But yet, there is an opportunity for those two to come together and work together. Heck, there's an opportunity for those two to come together and communicate. Then when you consider Soma, we know that this was a big part of Soma's character. After winning Shokugekis, Soma would then go and tell the person to teach him what they had done for their dish. So if the big problem that one half of the pair is saying here is just how well you can communicate with the other person, then Soma is really fortunate because he was in an environment where he could communicate with these, let's say, 5 different chefs of different styles. He could communicate with them and then synthesize all the information that he got from them into his own unique things, which, if you hear the sound of that is effectively the Totsuki regimen. That is effectively the Totsuki style. It's you come here, you clash with these people, and you learn from them. So it's really interesting how this woman goes about establishing why this is such a tough hurdle, and it kind of it furthers that division between Totsuki and the Blue, because her perspective seems very narrow-minded. It seems very ignorant of the fact that Totsuki exists as a cultural hot pot. Like, because again, in Totsuki, we can look through it. There's people of all different styles. There's Takumi. There's the Firmware Third Seat. There's Tsukasa. There's whatever Rindo does. There's Megumi. There's that one guy that does kebabs, if I recall correctly from way back when, right? So, interesting that she decided that this was going to be the big hurdle. It's just vastly different styles coming together is impossible, and it's just that doesn't really jive, and that's why these opportunities are being created for these chefs to be able to deal with it. If there's something that I've learned throughout this whole arc of Soma, is that the Blue as a whole vastly underestimated the potentials of the people in Totsuki. It's just, that's the reality. Now, mind you, like, the author, he has a narrative he wants to push. He wants to push the narrative of the dark chefs being the best chefs. But look how quickly that fell away. Look how quickly we went into a storyline where all the dark chefs have been defeated. Heck, do you remember that one noir that popped up back when Soma was doing the first trial? That guy that was just like giving us the narrations and just telling us all about how edgy the dark chefs were? Where is he? He disappeared. But that just shows you, like, the author didn't really have the resources to actually put care into these characters. So, you know, just gonna put that in there. That aside, I found that point really interesting. I think that's a really interesting point to just talk about, and I just found it interesting how the author is framing the situation to possibly give Soma an advantage here. Like, every time you have this kind of thing where the problem is individual chefs working together, then you just think of Soma and him standing in a field of knives and how he brought all those knives together. It's like the metaphor is already set up in such a way that Soma's already beaten it arcs before. Like, the same message has already been solved arcs before. So now let's talk about the theory that I saw pop up. So there's a bit of a theory that says, or people are thinking that the dish that Mana eats in this chapter, actually to speak about that real quick, that final page of Asahi standing with clothes flying behind him, that is such a Soma page. Like, that page really did make it for me. That was a wonderful page. That's like the insanity of Soma. That's like the good kind of insanity of Soma. Some guy talking about why his food's the best while clothes are flinging off behind him. Like, what else can you do to describe Soma so perfectly? Anyway, going back to this. They're saying, people are thinking, or not people, like a few people are thinking that Mana, she ended up eating Soma's dish. And the reason that they're saying that is because there are some heavy-handed cues in the chapter, and then there's some kind of weird thing going on with Mana. So I'll try to take you guys through this. The first indicator is that Asahi specifically says that his dish has to be eaten with a spoon, and then you have to crack off the crust. He gives a full instruction. He says specifically you have to start with the spoon. So that's the first thing. People are saying, well, that's a little bit, it's weird that he's pointing that out. And then I would say, well, like, this is kind of how chefs do, but, just follow along with it. After that, you have Mana saying that she wants to taste the dish, and she's kind of vague about it. She doesn't say anyone's name. She says, bring me a portion of his dish. So who could that even be? The next thing people are saying, well, Mana might have smelled it, because there was that big focus on people being able to smell the dish. People are saying, oh man, like, Asahi's already won just with the spell. Oh, sorry, not the spell, with the smell. And people are saying, well, Mana's too far away, so she can't figure things out based on smell. That's just not very possible. From there, you have the tasting sequences, and the tasting sequences show everyone is using the spoon to taste this dish. Now, I'm just going to point this out there because I think this is kind of maybe something that attracts against it. At some point, everyone switches over to a fork. So I don't know what that means. I don't know why they switch. Oh, well, no. They probably switch over because it's just easier to deal with some things. Anyway, after they have all their taste orgasms, we eventually get to see Mana trying the food. One big question is, I have no idea when exactly On went down into the crowd to get that dish. But when Mana's eating it, she's eating it with chopsticks. So that was one of those big moments, because it's like, well, why is she using chopsticks? Did she start the meal properly, or is this a case of the author skipping around and not showing her starting the meal properly? So the chopsticks are really what make this theory. People are saying because she used chopsticks, whereas everyone else didn't, it's very likely she had Soma's dish first. And in that case, man, the look on Asahi's face when he realizes that Mana didn't even think his dish was good enough, man, that would be hilarious. But there is a lot against this general idea. Like I said, if the basis of this theory is the chopsticks, well, that could be very easily explained by either incompetence on the artist's part, or just the author didn't have enough time when he was storyboarding this, and then just decided to just show this very quickly and didn't put much thought into it. If it actually is just this really cool play to show Asahi how screwed or how much he sucks, I would respect it so much. Like, that by itself would take away a lot of the misgivings I have about some of the chapters. Well, not really. Like, if you imagine that the misgivings kind of just added on and that there's a score of misgivings, and then say, let's for example say that it's like sitting at a negative 120. If this was actually what was happening, that there was just this play where Mana was actually eating Soma's dish first, then it'd go back to like minus 100, and I'd be really happy with that. I think that would be such a cool little trick. Will it happen? I want it to, but there's a lot going against it. It's all based on that chopstick panel, and there's a lot of things that can justify why she had chopsticks at that point in time. Although, it's really a matter of how much time passed between Anne giving her the meal and her using the chopsticks. Well, what's the time difference there? Who knows, right? Because somehow, like, Anne showed up at the bottom and she was able to take stuff. Anyway, like I said, by the end of the chapter, like, Asahi has a pretty good panel. People's clothes have flown off. Everyone's naked. I'm very excited for next chapter. I hope I hope that next chapter we have the Soma judgment and then we get to see the Asahi's fail face. I want to see him fail. So hard. It's not even funny anymore. This guy's annoying. Well, like, not annoying in a good way either. He's just bothersome. Like, there's a lot of problems with Asahi, man. I wish Soma took him more serious. Oh, sorry, Shokugeki no Soma as a series took him more seriously. I just find him to be a problem. I feel like he could serve to be put in his place. I hope Soma does it. Anyway, at that point, I got nothing else to say, guys. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a great day. Let me know what you thought down below.